9:30.
We're ready.
Let me know when we start the meeting. We're ready? Okay. So welcome. The regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods of California Nonprofit Mutual Benefit Corporation this Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021, 9:30 a.m., Laguna Woods Village, will now come to order. So Maggie, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, I have to be visible. Can you hear me?
Nathan's got a flag, but we can hear you.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Maggie. So I can only assume that we have the media here. So the next order of business would be the approval of the agenda. And so at this point in time, I do see that I possibly would like to have a correction on the open agenda. And one of the corrections would be to remove 13A. And that would be to, we were looking at establish an investment task force, and the charter that was presented, was not approved. But that isn't the real reason why we wouldn't do that. Is because after talking to Jim and several other people, we felt that the consideration, to modify our SAGE portfolio, we basically can be done in the finance meeting. They're not looking at changing the entire strategy of the portfolio. The only thing that they're looking at is possibly adding a small percentage of one stock mutual fund. And so my thoughts at that point in time, is it really necessary to form a task force and a charter and, everything that goes along with it when it can be done in the finance meeting? So
President Carpenter, as a point of clarification, do you mean 13C, update the investment task force charter?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're right, 13C. Okay, and the other one that I would like to also ask to postpone the establishment of the Technology Standing Committee to next month. I think that we ought to take in consideration just exactly what we want that committee to do, talk with staff, and find out what the charter would look like before we try to establish the committee. So I'm asking that be postponed until next month. It's not saying that we don't.
Bunny, what is that item? What was the number?
The item is okay, look, it's under new business.
13E.
13E.
Yeah.
D is in David.
E is in
Edward.
discuss.
E. That is an E.
E is in discuss and
We like echo.
Yes.
Thank you.
We can move that to future business.
Future, yeah.
Yeah. So would there be any other corrections or additions? So if there's no objections, I'm forgetting my wording this morning.
Agenda is,
The agenda.
Okay, so agenda is approved by unanimous. The correct agenda is approved by unanimous consent.
there you go.
Okay, thank you. So the next order of business would be the approval of minutes. And February 2nd, 2020, regular open meeting. Are there any changes or deletions? So if there are no changes or deletions and there are no objections, then the minutes for February 2nd, 2020 are approved by unanimous consent. The next item would be the report of the chair, and I'm just going to take my time, and because we're going to have a great presentation this morning, and so the next item would be the CEO report. Jeff.
Yes, good morning, everybody, and to the board. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I wanted to give you an update on this last weekend and with regards to our vaccination program and also some COVID numbers. This last weekend, we started the process of vaccinations of our second dose. Those people who had received the Moderna vaccinations earlier, this was coming up on their 28-day time frame. Unfortunately, the week before, we didn't get our allocation because of weather issues and national transportation issues. So we doubled up this last weekend and conducted over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, over 4,800 individuals in the village got their second dose. Phenomenal job by our staff, Eileen out there coordinating with the Orange County Health, obviously providing healthcare agency, providing the Moderna shots so that we could put them in the arms, and Memorial Care administering those through their volunteer efforts and their staffing. Just a phenomenal weekend where we were again able to get over 4,800 individuals through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That is the first step in our second dose program. We will be working next Saturday and Sunday to do the same thing. And then on the following week, we're looking at Friday, Saturday to finish up our second doses within the village. During that time period, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be evaluating and trying to get people to send in information if they did not get a first vaccine, so we can put together a kind of a wait list to see how we can functionally address that issue down the road. As you know, the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine is coming out, and they anticipate that in the next month that they will get additional vaccinations out to the states, which might avail us to go back and try to address people who missed the first time around. But we're focusing primarily on our second doses to make sure that everybody gets that, and that's going well. And then we'll evaluate based on how many numbers of people who have not received first doses that are 65 and over at a later date. So again, I want to thank Memorial Care, Eileen and the staff here, Carlos and Tom for coordination out there. Everybody did an excellent job, and I appreciate that a great deal. With regards to COVID numbers, I'm very pleased to announce since we last talked that the trend is going in a very positive manner. All of the numbers in Orange County are dropping. We're now down to only 119 ICU beds in place. We were over 150 beds over just a month ago in ICU. So we're down to 119 ICU beds being occupied and 419 hospital beds, which shows that we have great capacity now again in Orange County with regards to ability to handle hospitalization issues besides COVID. That's real positive. Our numbers have gone up just slightly. We had one additional case in in the over the last weekend. So that number is stabilized as well. The number of positive cases throughout the county has dropped. Even yesterday it was 191, and now it's down to 179 today. And probably the thing that affects everybody, unfortunately, there are a number of people have passed away, but the total deaths reported dropped from 13 down to 4. So that's a positive to hear that fewer people are passing away because of COVID. So all the trends, and most importantly in the statistics that they use with regards to the number of cases per 100,000, we were at 11%, and that's dropped down from over 46% earlier in the year. So that trend is getting closer and closer to moving us from the purple zone to the red zone. We need to get down to the 8% category, but we're trending in that area. And also in the positivity rate, as well as the high density areas, they've already reached the red zone. So we only have one more category, which is this cases per 100,000, which right now is at 11. And if we can get that down to 8, then the county will go into the red zone, which allows private sector to do more activity. Increase, like restaurant usages can go from 25% to 50%. So that's a real positive trend, and it's showing that people wearing masks, people doing their social distancing, and the fact that there are some vaccines getting out there. I wanted to finalize on that vaccine issue, that with the 4,800 that got the vaccines this last weekend and our numbers that we project for this next weekend, we're going to be close to, well over exceeding 25%, but we're going to be close to 50% of the community here being vaccinated. And with regards to that percentage, only 7% out there in the United States have received a second vaccine. So we're way ahead of the national average, and we're way ahead of even the Orange County average with regards to our village getting second doses. So I'm really proud of the fact that we've been able to accomplish that. And that's all I have on COVID and vaccines, and I'll turn it over to Siobhan. She has a few additional items.
Thank you, Jeff. Honorable President, members of the board, I'm pleased to give you a few updates this morning. The American Red Cross and the Laguna Woods Village Disaster Preparedness Task Force invite residents to join a free virtual training covering preparedness for older adults and home fire. Again, that's preparedness for older adults and home fire. The training is Wednesday, March 3rd at 9:45 a.m. Residents must RSVP to disasterpreparedness@vmsinc.org. The webinar is limited to 90 persons. Future virtual training sessions through the American Red Cross will cover wildfire and extreme heat, earthquake, and flood. So please RSVP for that training if you're interested. Arizona Pipeline is working in the village to upgrade Southern California Edison equipment at 5 locations. The Edison equipment upgrade work is underway on Punta Alta and Third Mutual, and via Mendoza and via Alhambra and United. Village landscaping, asphalt, and concrete removed by this work will be replaced by Southern California Edison and Arizona Pipeline. We are pleased to announce that the functionality of the Laguna Woods Village Resident Portal is now fully available. Residents and staff can resume credit card processing, submit service requests, check account balances, print account statements, update emergency contacts, and review resident and vehicle information. Residents new to the village are encouraged to attend a virtual new resident orientation session. These informational sessions allow an opportunity for new residents to become familiar with the operating rules of their mutual and to talk with a board member who represents their mutual. The next orientation sessions are for United Mutual on Wednesday, March 10th at 4:30 p.m. and for Third Mutual on Friday, March 19th at 9 a.m. Residents must RSVP by emailing Executive Assistant Becky Jackson. Becky can be reached at becky.jackson@vmsinc.org. And lastly, just a reminder that the coin exchange program for laundry quarters is now offered on Thursdays, once a week. This is Thursdays from 8 a.m. to noon. The schedule for United Mutual residents is the first and third Thursday at the Performing Arts Center, and the schedule for Third Mutual residents is the second and fourth Thursdays at Clubhouse 5. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Siobhan. So the next order of business will be the broadband group presentation. So I will turn it over to Eileen. Are you here? So that you can introduce our guest that will be providing the presentation.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to introduce you to Nathan Rosenberg, and in turn, he will introduce members of his team. We've been working on this. We started this project literally about 2 weeks before the pandemic really came to live in the village. So it's been a rather long process. However, they've just been a delight to work with, and they were able to get out here and do the site inspections that needed to be done. So I'm going to turn it over to Nathan.
Great. Thank you, Eileen. Members of the board, I'll echo what Eileen said. It's been our pleasure to work on this cable system assessment over the last year. I'll just make some brief introductory remarks, and then probably the best use of our time is to answer any questions that you had. Hopefully, you've all had a moment to review the cable system assessment. If you haven't, I encourage you to do so. Although technology changes, it's the infrastructure that lasts. And our assessment is that the residents of Laguna Woods Village are really fortunate to own an excellent cable system. I will tell you, it's a unique thing for a community to be able to own a cable system and operate it at the level that you all have been able to. For example, we did a similar assessment for Rossmore community in Northern California that many of you will be familiar with, and they don't have that luxury. They rely on Comcast, as many communities do, to operate their cable system. I want to just start by introducing you to some of the other people from the broadband group who worked on this assessment, who are also available for questions. I'll start with Pat Tebow. Pat is our Chief Technology Officer. He joined the broadband group 3 years ago after serving in the Marine Corps and then working for 10 years at Google. Pat, among other things, helped build the network that YouTube and YouTube TV run on today. And we met him when he was working at Google Fiber. He also helped bring Wi-Fi to the developing world as part of Google's Next Billion Users project. Pat did an evaluation of your internet services. Second, Frank Newsom. Frank has worked in the cable and telecommunications business for 30 years. He literally started his career climbing poles to wire cities with cable and worked his way up at Comcast and oversaw multiple new cities. Every time Comcast had a new acquisition and went into a new market, Frank went in and got the operation in good shape. And we were fortunate to have him to oversee 1,000 route mile fiber build to the city of Huntsville, Alabama, where he is today. Frank's been overseeing that project for the last few years, which was completed successfully on time. Frank's the one, as Eileen mentioned, who actually came to Laguna Woods Village with me and did an assessment of the system, walked it with your cable operations folks, looked at the head end and opened up boxes to see what kind of condition it was in. So he'll be happy to answer any questions about the infrastructure itself. Finally, Andrew Hurry. Andrew's a senior financial consultant to the broadband group. He has a day job where he's a FINRA registered investment banker, works on mergers and acquisitions of medium-sized companies, and does all of our financial analysis and prepares financial statements when we do large projects that need to go to the markets. Andrew did an analysis of the cable operations books and made some suggestions for the future as well. So that's who you have from the broadband group. Again, I'm Nathan Rosenberg. I led the project. I'm our VP of strategy. You have Pat Tebow, you have Frank Newsom, and you have Andrew Hurry. I'll just give some quick highlights. So first, the question that we always have when we come into one of these systems, these are decades old operations often, as it is in Laguna Woods. What kind of quality? Our evaluation is you have a high quality cable system. It uses industry standard architecture and equipment. It's very well maintained. Your staff, which has been your staff for quite a while, is excellent and really treats it as if they own it. We were very impressed with the craftsmanship that they use. In terms of pricing, your cable TV pricing is below market. I live in Irvine. We have people all over the country. I just happen to be in Orange County. And I wish I had the kind of cable TV pricing that you all enjoy at Laguna Woods Village. Your internet pricing is about average for the region. And although it does lack in terms of access and upstream speeds, part of that is honestly because you don't seem to have a whole lot of demand today for those higher tiers. There's not very many people who subscribe to the highest level of service. Secondly, we identified a few vulnerabilities going forward in the future. We were asked to not only do an assessment of the system today, but what you can expect to need to do in the future. I'm sure the last year has demonstrated internet connectivity is getting more and more and more important. Many of you probably use Netflix and Hulu instead of cable TV or in addition to it. That's all running on the internet. I heard mention of, credit card processing. That's obviously on the internet. And so the internet pipes that come in to serve the community are important. And currently, Laguna Woods Village really only has one pathway into the community. There's two pipes, but they both go down the same street on the same side on Vio Campo Verde. And so as a long-term investment of the community, just as your predecessors did decades ago by acquiring this cable system, we recommend that one of the things that get constructed, and we realize it would be a significant capital expense, is a second internet pathway into the community that will become more and more important as more and more services go online. The second is you have this excellent staff, as I mentioned. They've also been your staff for decades, and it's probably appropriate to do some succession planning. They have quite a bit of institutional knowledge, and they're unlikely to stay with you for the next 100 years. So we want to make sure that we train the next generation of leaders who will eventually take their place, and then make sure that they have all the knowledge that your current staff has built over the last 30, 40 years. One of the things that the staff is very aware of is that your cable TV costs are also likely to increase over time. That's something that this board has already seen, and steps were taken last year to mitigate that, but that's a trend that you can expect to continue as more and more television moves off of cable TV and onto streaming services on the internet. Finally, there's a question, and this was a bit of a surprise that Frank found, a good surprise. The staff was already planning on doing something called splitting the nodes, which is essentially doing an upgrade so you can have faster internet speeds at each manor. The community was built with a second empty conduit. Conduit is just simply an empty piece of plastic pipe underground, just sitting there waiting to be used. And that really opens up the possibility of building fiber to the curb instead of splitting the nodes. And so one of the recommendations that we made was that both of those options be weighed against each other, the costs be examined to see if splitting the nodes is the best way to go, or if maybe a slow and deliberate transition of fiber to the curb might make sense. So the report has a number of additional smaller recommendations. I'm happy to go over those as well, but I know you've all had a chance to read our report. So what we thought would be most useful is to answer whatever questions that you have to make sure that this time is most valuable for you. Again, just on behalf of the broadband group, this was a great project and we really appreciate the opportunity to work on it. And I don't know who I go to open up for questions.
You're right.
Great.
Thank
Hi,
you very much. All right, so we can either go into the chat box or you can open up your video and raise your hand. You have a choice. So are there any questions? I'm not seeing, let me see, the chat box. There's nobody in the chat box. Okay. I don't see that there are any questions. So is there any other comments that you want to make that you think is very important?
I think one of the questions that came up on the MAC was whether you ought to sell your cable system to an outside cable operator. We talked to them. There's a number of challenges that need to be worked out in the coming years if you were to pursue that path. But we have to tell you, after the extensive assessment that we did, we do not recommend selling the system to an outside party. The very first thing that they're going to do is raise your rates. As I mentioned, you have below market rates right now. So they would raise your rates so that they could turn a profit. And also, you have an incredibly responsive service call system, dramatically more service calls than we typically see. and your residents have come to expect that level of service. The cable industry is not famous for its customer service, and there's a reason for that. It's expensive. And so the second thing you could expect if you sold is for service levels to dramatically decrease, longer hold times on the phone, more automated service rather than personal service. So we do not recommend that you pursue a sale. But if you did, it would likely be in the range of $15 to $20 million.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question for from James. So, Jim Hopkins, so would you like to speak?
Oh, sure. My question is, where does 5G and 6G fit into the future? I've read where 5G, 6G is said to be the future of the home internet access and therefore streaming and TV as we know it today.
Great question, Jim. I'll take this one. It's a question that I get asked all the time. Why are we talking about fiber and cable? Isn't everything going wireless? The reality is that as we move to 5G and on to 6G, that's going to require more fiber optic cabling, not less. In the cities that got the initial upgrades for 5G, the most expensive and cumbersome part of it was bringing additional fiber to additional cellular locations. So if you just think about your own home, if you have Wi-Fi, you still have to plug a blue cable into that Wi-Fi to make it work. And it's the same thing with all of these 5G sites that are getting built. They still need to have fiber coming into them from underground. So the fact that Laguna Woods Village has a hybrid fiber cable network throughout the community will really help it as it goes to 5G. But that's one of the reasons why we recommend evaluating perhaps going straight to fiber to the curb rather than sticking with splitting the cable nodes, is to enable services like 5G.
So if a follow-up question, today, at least on advertising, we get 5G through our cell phones. So we really don't have the wiring requirement there. Is it possible to do that same transmission through the airwaves as we do with the cell phone?
Yeah, so you don't have a wire in your cell phone, but the cell tower that you're connecting to does have wires coming into it. It has power and fiber optic wires so that it can connect to the internet. It's going to be the exact same thing in Laguna Woods Village. You won't need a 5G site in your home, but there might be one down the street, and that needs to have fiber optic and power lines coming into it. So you're well on your way. You have good cell coverage. One of the things that you can expect is that you're going to need significantly more of these sites, but we think that Laguna Woods Village is well prepared for that with its fiber infrastructure.
Thank you. The next, Bert.
Yeah, question. I noticed that you were recommending a third pipe, and I'm just wondering, with the projected growth, particularly with streaming and I think IoT, we're going to be seeing a lot more demand for capacity. And I'm just wondering, on a projection basis, how much time do we have?
Great. Pat, let me just turn to you. Can you talk about overall internet capacity and the value of having 2 or 3 internet pipes, as we call them?
Yeah, sure. The charts we shared in our presentation showed about just over 50% capacity use of the 2 pipes, right? And the reason that's important to note is if one of those paths fail, you barely have enough capacity on the second pipe at peak times, right? There are times of the day where the second one will suffice. The physical path is probably the biggest reason we're asking for that third pipe and maybe even another provider, because there are times where AT&T would have a network issue where another provider, maybe a Frontier, wouldn't. So it gives you that diversity, right? So at your home, a single point of failure is your equipment, but at the head end where everything's aggregated and all this internet routing is happening, having those choices and that diversity is important to make sure that the community is able to maintain its uptime. There's also a piece you talked about, home streaming, and yes, bandwidth will continue to grow. Most ISPs won't upgrade till about 80% utilized, right? But in the back of their mind, when they start talking about 80%, they might have 5 network paths, and if one fails, they still have capacity, right? So you're at that beginning point where you went from 1 path to 2, and now possibly 3, where one failure right now is 50% of your capacity, but if you add that third, it's only 30% of your capacity, right? So you're just growing into those steps, 80% a good number for an upgrade path, but because you're on that cusp of two and, this third path and some diversity there is why that recommendation was made.
Right, yeah. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? So if there are no further questions, we'll have to thank you. And this was a great presentation, and I was also at the one that you were giving that media and communication. And I really appreciate the report, and it really gives us an idea of what we need to do going forward. Oh, I want to ask one question. Okay.
Please.
One question is, and you may have mentioned, what is the time frame that you think that the industry will actually go full streaming? Is it 10 years?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So I'll open this up to my colleagues if they have comments, but I'll give you my take. First off, if I had a crystal ball, I'd make a lot of money in the stock market betting on that question. So I'll say two things. First off, the switch to streaming largely caught the cable industry by surprise. That is, it's been happening much faster than they thought, even before COVID. COVID probably accelerated that another year or two. Quite a few of us have tried new streaming services in the last year, which we may have held off on, if not for being stuck at home. The other thing that's happening, and this is important to understand, the cable industry is going to kill cable TV on its own. And this is something we talked about extensively with the staff that they're well aware of. To get additional internet speeds through that cable that comes into your home, they need to get all of that television signal off of it and make it just an internet-only pipe. So that's, for example, why you see a company like Comcast, which is one of the biggest cable TV companies in the country, launching its own streaming service, Peacock and Xfinity. They want to get onto streaming. They want everything to come into your home over the internet. So it's actually the cable industry that's going to accelerate this change so that they can bring you faster and faster internet speeds. So, as we highlighted in the report, there's actually currently a little insider information for everybody. Currently, Laguna Woods Village contracts with an association to bring you television stations, like TNT and FX and ESPN. In a few rare cases, you actually buy directly, but mostly you buy through an association. There will come a day where the association won't have anything to offer because cable TV will die. I think that's many, many years away. But as I said, it's been happening faster than anyone predicted.
Okay, thank you. So if there are no more questions, we will move on to the next item. And
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the open forum. Do we have any speakers today?
Yes, Madam President, we have 3 letters or comments to be read. The first one is from Cash Akrapar, Manor 201E. GRF charges a flat fee of $240 a year for electric vehicle charging in the carports, irrespective of how much power these cars are designed to take. For example, a Tesla has a 52 kilowatt 52 kilowatt electric battery, larger for more expensive units, that drives the car for around 400 miles. A Prius plug-in has about a 25 kilowatt, about equal to 2.5 kilowatts. It takes electrical charges that drives it in all electric mode for 25 minutes. Both vehicles are charged $240 a year. A Prius plug-in thus takes 16 times less electricity per charge. A plug-in hybrid takes roughly the same charge as a golf cart plugged in. Advantage, however, for the owners is that they can use the car for local driving almost pollution-free in our village. I propose a change in the charge for electric cars be based on the actual energy pulled per charge, or all plug-in hybrids to be charged the same rate as golf carts and not as their EV counterparts, the electric guzzlers. Thank you. The second comment is from Doug Gibson at 5289. He actually has two comments. First one, several months back, I heard that village board members were going to meet, including the VMS staff, with a group of vendors and a group of realtors. The goal was to open up communication and share information. I've happened to talk to one individual from each group, wondering if the meetings are continuing and what the results have been from the board representative and VMS. The second comment, having now completed my second vaccine, my congratulations to the VMS staff, Memorial Care, and all the great volunteers. A wonderful experience with lots of smiles, great organization, and the help provided to those in need, almost like a social experience. Now's the time to open up some of our facilities, and as we continue to deal with this. Great progress has been made here above Orange County and the state. Village residents are really in need of getting back to normal. And yes, we have shown we understand and can follow the necessary protocols. We need the board's direction to VMS to start opening up. And please tell us what is specifically and hopefully the timeline. I liked Jeff Parker's statement yesterday about getting the hands-on employees vaccinated. We can do our own controlled process here. I hope you agree with my public understanding for this need. And the third comment is from Suzanne Frank, Manor 227B. I have two questions. Is it possible to have the brooms put back on the tennis courts? Some of the courts get a lot of leaves on them, and when the VMS employee leaves at 11 a.m., there's no way to get a broom to clean the courts that need it. Second question is, when will the part-time employee at the tennis courts receive her computer back? She's not able to receive emails from anyone at this time. And that is the conclusion of the comments.
Okay, thank you.
President Carpenter,
So are there any?
I wanted to
Yeah?
bring something to your attention. We did have Eileen just read a comment from Mr. Kash Akrakar. He is in the attendee area and he is wishing to speak. Would you like to allow him to speak?
Okay.
Okay. I will move him to panelist.
Thank you, President Money. The difference between electric vehicle like Tesla, which is 52 kilowatt hour battery, and a 25 kilowatt Prius plug-in is like 20 times. A Prius battery is almost similar to, but different format, as a golf cart battery. Bert Moldau will agree with me if he speaks. So these two are two different animals, and we are charging the same charge for a 25 kilowatt battery as a 52 to 80 kilowatt hour batteries that Teslas use. So I think this needs to be revisited and looked at again. That was my comment. Thank you very much for letting me speak. I hope I was legible to everybody.
Okay, Bert, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, Cash is absolutely right. We've known this, but actually, you know, the charging that we do in these carports is not the way you want to go in any event. We only have 120 volt circuits there, and it takes just too darn long. It takes, for every 4 miles, it takes an hour hookup. So we have to come up with a much better solution than that. And this is being looked at right now in terms of EV chargers. We are aware that there are going to be significant incentives for EV chargers, and we're going to be looking closely as to where we might be able to put the EV chargers. And it will be better. Secondly, the thing that also will present a problem to us is the information that we collect at the time the car is registered. We don't have any information with regard to how many EVs we have in the village, for instance. You know, we tried to get this information. We found out that what was happening is that we were identifying hybrids, non-pluggable hybrids, as EVs, and they're not. So that has to also be worked on. the data capture and the IT work that would have to be done in order to be able to bill properly.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other responses from the directors? Okay, okay, Egon?
I just want to say I agree with Bert and with Cash that we do need to bring equity to that situation, especially if we're going to provide for a lot more charging with new EV stations. I don't think we should subsidize people driving. We don't subsidize gasoline cars, but we can subsidize electric cars. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brian, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a quick comment in regards to Suzanne's email about the brooms on the tennis court and also the computer and the tennis pro shop down there. So we are looking to potentially reinstitute those brooms at a later time. Right now, as long as we're still in the purple tier, we're still want to keep all the touch points away. And we will certainly take another look at that once we move down into different tier levels. In regards to the computer system, that was part of the malware issue that we had. And right now we are looking to replace that computer down there and also transition the staff member back into the tennis clubhouse in the future time frame. So once we have the computer available, we'll go ahead and transition her back over there.
Thank you. I'm going to let Jeff speak, but I'm going to ask you a question, Brian. Everybody's interested in knowing when the golf reservation system is going to be up. Can you just have a brief comment about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the past couple of weeks, we've been working very diligently with the vendor, the finance department, also IT, in getting the database up to date. Getting the WorldPay system implemented, and we're very, very close. There's just a few minor things we have to figure out in regards to individuals that don't have an email. We found out that quite a few of the residents that do play golf do not have email. So we're just finalizing the last bit of, not information, but the last bit of the process, and then we'll make an announcement here very, very soon to the entire community. So I would say probably in a couple of weeks we should be able to implement the system and get it activated.
All right, thank you. Jeff, you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to respond to Mr. Gibson's comments. With regards to the meetings, we did have specific meetings that we had with regards to our manor alterations staff dealing with both real estate individuals who process through manor alterations as well as our contractors. We are going to and anticipate having additional meetings like that because they were both productive in giving us good feedback with regards to some of the things that we were trying to address in catching up in manor alterations. We've made a number of changes in manor alterations to try to get our backlog up to speed and addressing that, working with both United and Third committees. We have approached it from a couple different manners with United. They've gone to a permitless process, which is going to help streamline some of the processes going through manor alterations where you needed to get not only a permit, a mutual consent process, but also an inspection process. This permitless process is going to streamline that and allow individuals to replace like type of activities. Say if they're replacing a microwave for a microwave identical to identical, that will speed up that process. So we're doing that. Along with the communication, going back to Mr. Gibson's point, we also are putting together through manor alterations a newsletter that's going to be used to help facilitate keeping contractors and residents up to speed with any changes that have occurred in the laws outside of the village, and i.e. city codes and that kind of information, but also if there's been any resolutions or any activity changes with regards to in the village, which is a new guideline or a new requirement or something that has been taken away, such as the reducing the requirements as the permit list is doing. So we want to be able to communicate that. So we're going to be doing that newsletter, and we're getting ready for our first version of that newsletter to come out either the end of this week or next week. So we're looking forward to that. So we will be continuing those meetings with the real estate and contractors to continue our dialogue with them. And as we are staffing up in the manor alterations, we are catching up. We also put together a team, Siobhan put together a team of senior administrative people who went in and spent some additional hours off of their normal chores and responsibilities and went over to help out manor alterations address emails that were backlogged and telephone calls that were backlogged. So we've been able to get to everybody out there, be able to speak to everybody, so they now understand where they're at in the queue, where their application needs additional work or needs additional information, or whether the time frame for their inspection process. So we're lining that stuff up. I'll be presenting a little bit more information at the board meeting in closed session today, but I'm pleased to let Mr. Gibson know that we're working diligently in those areas. And with regards to the vaccination, Mr. Gibson's comment, again, I thank you to Memorial Care and our staff for doing a great job on that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any other responses? So there are no other responses. The next item will be the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are recommended by action by committees, for action by committees, and all be enacted by the board by one motion. In the event an item is removed from the consent calendar by the members of the board, such item shall be subject to further discussion and action by the board. Recommendation from the Finance Committee. Consistent with the statutory obligations, a subcommittee of the board consisting of the treasurer and at least one other board member reviewed and approved the preliminary Golden Rain Foundation financials for the month of January 2021, and by this vote, ratified that such review be confirmed in this month's board meeting member open session meeting minutes. Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the consent calendar is approved by unanimous consent. Thank you. So the next item of business is the unfinished business. So we need to entertain a motion to approve a resolution for Equestrian Center additional services and fees. Joan, please read the resolution.
Resolution 90 XX-XX, amended equestrian center pricing policy. I'm going to skip some of this, but according to Resolution 90-12-132, which established guidelines for shared costs and fees, certain fees can be imposed upon users of various recreational facilities in order to control crowding, to minimize overusage, and to recover operating costs. And whereas the board periodically reviews fees as part of the business planning process to determine adequacy of revenues and shared costs, and their adoption of the 2021 business plan included certain fee changes. Now therefore be it resolved, change the date, should be March 2nd, 2021, that the Board of Directors of the corporation hereby introduces a revised GRF pricing policy relative to the Equestrian Center. And I'm going to read just the change since we've read the entire policy last time. The change is to add under horse boarding this. Specialty care services such as turnout, additional feed, lunging, and other types of services are established at a per service cost determined by the board to be comparable to market value of services. And that, I believe, is all that was changed. So therefore, I move to approve this resolution as amended.
Thank you. Is there a second? Maggie, you second it? Is there any discussion? So hearing no discussion, are there any objections? So if there are no objections, then the resolution for the Equestrian Center, additional services and fees is approved by unanimous consent. Thank you. So the next order of business is to entertain a motion to approve a resolution for the obsolete equipment policy. Joan, will you please read the resolution?
Yes, just a minute.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll read it, but there's something missing in this, and when I get to it, I'm going to say what is missing, because it's not, I think it was accidentally left out. So here we go. Resolution 90-21-XX, obsolete equipment policy. Whereas in the normal course of business, the Golden Rain Foundation, GRF, replaces items of equipment that have reached the end of their economic lives, have become expensive or impossible to maintain, or have otherwise become obsolete. And whereas GRF determines through its capital planning process or via supplemental appropriation, which items of capital equipment are to be replaced. And whereas, unless otherwise expressly authorized by the board of directors of this corporation, all items shall be disposed of. And whereas GRF desires to optimize the proceeds from the disposal of such equipment. Now, therefore, be it resolved March 2nd, 2021, that all GRF equipment to be disposed of will be sold using and here is what should be, using a professional auctioneer without internal sales to the community. And that should be inserted at that point. Resolved further that parts can be removed from certain obsolete vehicles and equipment of those parts are difficult to procure, or the value of keeping the parts is more than the estimated sale of the obsolete equipment. And resolved further that the purchasing and supply manager will inform equipment dealers and others who may be interested in purchasing any of the obsolete equipment. And resolve further that any equipment that is deemed to pose a significant threat to the safety of the purchaser or user, or would cost more money to sell than the estimated value of the item, or remains unsold after all reasonable efforts are made, will be disposed of in the proper waste receptacle and in compliance with applicable laws and ordinances after notification to the GRF treasurer. And resolve further that any individual participating in the decision to dispose of an obsolete item shall be precluded from purchasing that item. And resolve further that Resolution 90-20-48, adopted September 1st, 2020, is hereby superseded and canceled. And resolve further that the officers and agents of this corporation are directed on behalf of the corporation to carry out this resolution. I move that we approve this resolution.
Can we have a second? Thank you. Maggie seconds it. Any discussion? So Chris, would you like to speak?
Yes.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Yeah, this resolution is, I see it as a big cleanup item for us. Right now, our current process for especially surplusing our vehicles is very time consuming, and it creates a lot of work for staff. And currently, we're just not seeing a lot of residents bidding on our surplus equipment. So this will enable us to basically get rid of our surplus equipment in a much more efficient manner, therefore bringing in revenue on a much quicker basis and allow us to clean up our yard out here a little bit better.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, are there any objections? Hearing none, if there are no objections, the resolution, to approve a resolution for the obsolete equipment policy, is approved by unanimous consent. I don't think this needs to go for 28 days though, does it, Joe? Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Oh, thank you. This will really help. Thank you.
All right. The next item is to entertain a motion to approve miscellaneous vehicle purchase. So, Joan, would you like to read the resolution?
Resolution 90-21-XX, board resolution regarding the purchase of replacement F-350 from miscellaneous vehicle budget. Whereas on September 1st, 2020, the Golden Rain Foundation Board approved an allocation of $200,000 for the purchase of miscellaneous vehicles as needed. Whereas the Golden Rain Foundation was provided with a specific long-range plan to replace the village's aged fleet. And whereas on February 3rd, 2021, the Mobility and Vehicle Committee recommended the Board of Directors approve an unanticipated replacement of a 2007 Ford F-350 that is experiencing excessive repairs costs. Now, therefore, be it resolved, March 2nd, 2021, that the Board of Directors hereby approves the purchase of a replacement Ford F-350 truck in the amount of $55,000 out of the miscellaneous vehicles capital account. And resolve further that all the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move that we approve this resolution.
Do we have a second? Okay, thank you. Chris, would you like to speak on this?
This one's pretty self-explanatory. I'm here to answer any questions. Bottom line is, early this year in January, we had an old 350 truck that's used by our paving crew that was brought in. That we've just been throwing a lot of money into this particular vehicle. I was hoping to have it last for one more year because I was in the plan to be replaced in 2022. However, when it was brought in, we had a huge over $10,000 expenditure, and so instead of spending the $10,000 on it, I wanted to request from the board to see if we could use this miscellaneous account to just go ahead and purchase this vehicle a year early.
Thank you. Bert?
Yeah, just a question for Chris. Chris, I know that there are several manufacturers now that are putting out trucks. I don't know whether they're the equivalent of the F-350, but I suspect there must be a few. Have we looked into this to see whether or not this would be a good time to move to an EV style?
Yeah, I have checked, Bert, and right now it's very early in the technology, and the big trucks, the 350s up higher, I just don't feel comfortable doing that yet. It's going to be coming. In my previous job in Santa Ana, we bought an electric 350, an E350, and electrified it. And quite honestly, we had nothing but problems with it because we were kind of early in the process to buy it. And on something this big, I'd rather not be the guinea pig on buying an electric vehicle too early. I would much rather let somebody else be the guinea pig and have the problems. But it's definitely something that I'm looking at. for the larger 250s, 350s, and even 450s, because you're right. There are more and more companies out there that are looking to electrify the larger vehicles. I just don't feel comfortable at this point recommending it for the village.
Gone to a show in Long Beach a couple of years ago and saw a couple of equivalent 350s, but I didn't know the name of the manufacturer, so I can't judge whether or not it's reliable or it was reliable. But I would have.
Yeah, those are pretty small companies, and they're startup companies that are doing this. And again, given that it's kind of new technology, I just don't feel comfortable recommending that we be in the forefront on something like that. I kind of learned my lesson in my previous job not to go too fast on stuff like this, because it did cause lots of problems. But it's definitely something that's on the radar, watching closely, and where it makes sense to do so, especially because, like you had mentioned earlier, Bert, in the meeting, there is a lot of money out there, both for the infrastructure and the vehicles to buy this stuff. So definitely looking forward to that. Initially, what I'm looking at is they finally found a good way to electrify some of our buses. So that's the next thing I'm really taking a close look at, is to see if we can get some of our buses used for our transportation program and electrify those.
Oh, that's encouraging. I know the problem was with the ramps.
Yeah, there's a company out in Michigan that finally found a way to keep the bus being a low, what I call low boy, or the low ones where you could use the ramps that we like. So I actually had a conference call with them like about a month ago. Those won't be even available for purchase until this fall. So it's new, but I was very encouraged after spending a good hour or so talking with them. So definitely something we're going to look into.
Nice job. Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Egon.
Chris, as I recall, we had quite a discussion about this truck at the last MMV. Is it a diesel truck?
No, it's not. It's regular gas.
Okay. So, and it only had very low mileage, as I recall, but it's, quite old. So what are you going to replace it with? Surely you're not, if there's a problem with this model of Ford, we ought to think seriously about getting a different truck.
We haven't had problems recently, Egon, with the Ford 350s and 450s. Unfortunately, for those few years back in the 2007s and 6, 7s, and 8s, they were having some issues. But we buy primarily Ford trucks, and we've had zero problems with them now. So I feel very comfortable that we're not going to have the same problems we had before.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, is there any objections? If there are no objections, the motion to approve miscellaneous vehicle purchases is approved by unanimous consent. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the next item is the insurance broker selection. So I don't know if Betty is going to give us an oral report on that. She had mentioned that she was, but if she's not here, that's fine. I can have Jim Hopkins speak on it, or I can just let the audience know that we will be talking about this in closed session, and at this point in time, there are two brokers that we are looking at. So, Jim, would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, I would just suggest that Director Pearlstone give an oral report on that. He's much more involved in the insurance industry and understands it, and so I would suggest that if he's available and would like to, that he give an oral report to let us know what's going on.
Would you like to speak, John?
Sure. I think we're just a little premature to give a good update to the community in that there's some decisions still being made, but for the benefit of today, I think great progress has been made. We've found things that we really think have potential to help in solving the various insurance crises going on within the community, and competent people that we think can guide us through it. So we have to get a few other questions answered, and then we'll finalize those decisions and then give a full report to the community, of course. And that'll happen certainly over the next 30 days.
Thank you, John. So the next item of business is to entertain a motion to introduce a resolution pertaining to the distribution of the publications by non-residents. And Joan, will you please read the resolution?
Yes. Resolution 90-21 XX, distribution of publications by non-residents of Laguna Woods Village. Whereas the Golden Rain Foundation of Laguna Woods adopted a policy applicable to the distribution of all First Amendment publications within Laguna Woods Village by non-residents, and whereas the board recognizes the need to revise distribution of publications by non-residents of Laguna Woods Village resolution to reflect current insurance requirements. Now therefore be it resolved March 2nd, 2021, that the board of directors of this corporation hereby introduces the revised distribution of publications by non-residents of Laguna Woods policy as attached to the official minutes of this meeting, and resolved further that resolution 90-15-17 adopted March 3rd of 2015 is hereby suspended in its entirety and canceled, and resolved further that the officers and agents of this corporation are hereby authorized on behalf of the corporation to carry out the purpose of this resolution. I move that we approve this resolution for discussion purposes now and postpone it for 28 days for the final vote according to Civil Code 4360.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Is there no discussion? Are there any objections? If there are no objections, the motion to introduce a resolution pertaining to distribution of publications by non-residents is approved by unanimous consent. And basically, the final motion will be postponed for the 28-day review. So thank you. So the next item is the Village Community Fund pickleball court lighting donations. So does anyone want to speak on that? Brian? Okay.
Sure. So due to the pandemic, obviously a lot of the activities are moved outside, and pickleball, one of the fastest growing sports in the country, currently has a lot of players and participants playing outside currently. Obviously during the winter months, has kind of prohibited some of the play to occur in the evening due to 3 of the courts not having any lights available on those courts to play on, therefore reducing the number of participants playing pickleball at that time. And so the pickleball club contacted VCF in regards to providing some funding that would essentially put lights on the 3 remaining courts that do not have the lights. And essentially the staff report indicates GRF's endorsement for VCF to go ahead and to start fundraising to obtain the funds to put the lights on the courts.
Okay, thank you. I will need a motion to approve this application. Joan?
Yes, I move that we approve this funding project for pickleball court lighting donation.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion?
Yes, I have one.
Okay.
What is the approximate cost of the lighting?
The cost is about $18,500. I believe it's indicated inside the staff report. We did get a quote from the installer to install the initial lights back in 2019. They came back out. The conduit's already in place. Essentially, they would have to pull some wiring and install the new light heads on the existing poles.
Thank you.
Hey, Bert? You're
Muted, Bert.
You're muted.
Okay, Brian indicated that the poles are already there, but I'm looking at the attachment 2, and it indicates, they're spelling out that the court lighting, part of the job was to be installed with the poles, 4 poles, interestingly enough, 4-inch posts. So I think that's an error. I would hope so. I don't think 4-inch posts are going to do the job. I would like to see a statement of work that spells out the specifications for these lights. And the other issue that I have, and I think has to be resolved, I know that we pay, there's payment on the tennis courts for the amount of time that the lights are lit. And wondering, if we should not be discussing how we propose to recover the cost of the electricity.
President Carpenter, we have a member comment on this item as well.
Okay, I'll let Egon go speak. Go speak, and then we'll listen to the comment. Egon?
Yeah, Brian, you said the poles are already in place. I haven't been over there to look at that in that kind of detail. But have you considered, if you had the poles in place, you just put a solar unit on top? You could do that for a couple of thousand per pole, and that'd be a lot cheaper than $18,000 that you got written up here, and there'd be the electric cost question would be muted. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right. And did Brian want to speak to that?
Yeah, I did. I apologize. I stand corrected. There are 4 poles that do have to be installed. There are a couple of poles that are already there that have to be retrofitted with additional lighting. So my apologies.
Okay. And
I would propose that we defer this to the M&C committee.
okay. And let me speak just for a second. We are not paying for this. This is a donation.
Right.
Who is going to pay for the electricity and the maintenance?
I don't know if there is very much maintenance on it, and I don't know if it's any more electricity than they're using now. So, Brian?
You're looking at almost, 594 watts per light. 600 watts, so that's 2,400, 2.4 kilowatts. That's significant.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the maintenance and the electricity costs will be borne by GRF. However, at this time, we're just requesting an endorsement for VCF to see if they can even raise the funds.
Okay.
Thank you. There was, Grant, didn't you say that there was a comment from the audience?
Yes, from a Diane Phelps and a Richard Rader.
Okay.
I see one of the hands has been lowered. I will let now Richard Rader in.
Okay, how are we doing?
Just looks like there is some technical difficulty on the transition.
You're doing great.
While we get that sorted, I will go ahead and bring Diane Phelps.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Joan Brown. I'm using Diane's Zoom account, so that's why her name came up. And whatever I wanted to say has already been addressed. The issue is that we have some poles that can be doubled up, some new poles have to go on, and the club is looking to raise the funds to do this ourselves. So hopefully the expense involved is non-existent or very small to you, and we're looking to give the money using VCF. That's all I've got.
Any other comments? I see Dick's name up now. Is he ready to speak? Dick?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Oh.
Go ahead.
This is rather unusual. I have a request. I had great difficulty with getting on Zoom, and as you just saw, I got cut off. So what happened was when you were discussing distribution of publications by outside residents, I had some comments I wanted to make. Could I make them now, or do you want me to wait until the end of the meeting when there are comments?
I'm looking for Joan's nod. But I think we probably should.
We need to finish the vote on this first.
Okay, let's do that. All right, thank you. All right. So are there any comments, any more comments on the
Bonnie, I would like to make a motion
court lighting.
for this to the M&C, GRF M&C committee for further investigation. And they probably ask staff to go out and price out what this solution is going to cost. Because I think the pickleball club would certainly like to know what the actual cost would be.
Don't delay it.
Yeah. Comment?
All right.
Yeah, I would not suggest delaying this. I mean, this is a donation. I think it would be prudent for those who will start the project to get some advice and counsel from the M&C committee. But this is a donated project, and I don't think there's purpose in postponing it. The other part of this is, let me finish, please, Bert. The other part of this is, you know, whatever electricity and other draw that this has will be minor compared to the additional recreation that it allows for pickleball players. So I would not use something like that to delay this project.
Jim, they don't have the money. They don't know how much they're going to have to raise. So it's not a question of delay. It's a question of they got to know how much money they're going to need. And I say that it's up to the M&C committee to get this thing spec'd out with a statement of work so that we can get some pricing.
I already have a contractor that's given pricing. You either take that or you don't.
Sorry, there are multiple solutions to the problem that may provide a better solution at a lower cost. And that's a responsibility that we have to the community.
Can I comment, Bunny?
Well, I have Egon, then John, okay?
Maybe
Great.
you have your hand
Thank
up.
you.
Yeah, Egon?
Trouble finding your cursor. The only thing I want to add, Brian, I would recommend that you talk to them and let them know how inexpensive the solar option for that would be. we're going forward on this stuff like this, and it makes no sense to do it old-fashioned way when you can do it very inexpensively this way. I realize that they're donating it, and I just suggest you let them know that that is the other option, which would cost them less. But I have no objection to the project otherwise.
Okay. I'm sorry, John?
Thanks. So I was directly involved with this discussion at the CAC level, and I guess the comments I would make are, I don't think the two issues being brought out are mutually exclusive. The Pickleball Club has done a great job of getting out in front of this and getting some numbers that they think can work as a range for their fundraising. And there's nothing preventing them, if we can approve this, from moving forward with their fundraising. While once that is established, going through M&C, checking alternatives, seeing if there's a more cost-effective way to do it. But it's probably also worth mentioning that I think they're looking at lighting that's consistent with the lighting that's already at the pickleball courts. And there may be issues with trying to change the lighting for the addition versus going with the conduit that's already there. We don't have to have that discussion today. The point is, let's let them move forward, raise their funds, and then do the financial analysis through M&C to see if those better alternatives work. There's no reason not to sequence this and let this move forward, would be my take on it.
Thank you. Brian, do you have any comments?
No, not really. I mean, I do agree with John. So thank you.
Okay. Are there any more comments? Okay. So, are there any objections? So if there are no objections, then the motion to allow this community fund pickleball court lighting donation is approved by unanimous consent. So thank you so much. And I will have to say, it seems that these types of donations are working out very well. I think this is the second one we've received, from the Village Community Fund. And so I encourage people, to participate. So thank you. All right, so the next item would be if we need a break. And if you would like a break, would everybody like a 5-minute break? I need a raise of hands. I got a nod, several nods. Okay.
Madam Chair, point of order.
Okay, point of order.
we had a commentary that we postponed.
Oh, yes.
Consideration.
Yes, I apologize. Okay, Richard, Dick Rader, would you like to speak? Dick?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. One thing I will tell you, we need to work out the kinks with the Zoom. Apparently, if you want to make a comment, you have to have the meeting link. Otherwise, you don't have an opportunity to do so. So that's something that ought to be looked at. I do want to thank you for allowing me to make this comment. I'm concerned about the resolution for distribution of publications. Let me tell you why. I attended the many committee meetings that discussed this, and my recollection was that they said that they wanted to continue to allow telephone book distribution. It contains a lot of information. I won't go into all of it. There's a lot of governmental agencies and things. It's all there for you. So therefore, it was agreed that we will allow distribution. If this goes through, it is likely that the telephone book publication will not continue. They're ad-supported. And if you do not get wide distribution, you will see that the telephone book will not be supported by the ads and it will stop publication. Because it says publications will only be distributed if they're specifically requested by the residents. That's where you're going to get limited distribution. The other thing is that this was all brought about by the concern that there was dumping in one place of telephone books. Is this the appropriate way to address that problem? Isn't there a more reasonable way of going to the company and specifying what we expect of them? why go to this elaborate means? But the other thing is, this covers all publications. This means newspapers. So I am thinking that the guy who delivers the newspapers is a contract employee. And so he delivers the New York Times, national newspapers, he delivers local newspapers, including the Globe, etc. What if the companies don't have, will not cover him for the exorbitant commercial liability that we're requesting? I think that this could have some consequences. Furthermore, you may decide, well, we'll make exceptions. I think that would be highly discriminatory. You either do it all or none. You pass this for everybody or nothing. Our suggestion is that you remove the restriction, only publications specifically requested by residents. And I think that would be a good resolution. As I said, you can go to the telephone company because that's the only one who seems to be violating our rules, and come up with a simple way to address our concerns about dumping. Thank you.
Dawn has her hand up.
Siobhan and Bert. Okay.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify that the only change that we made to the existing resolution was to add the insurance requirements. The requirement that there be a list of interested parties has been in the resolution since it was adopted. This is not a new change.
And was there anyone else that had their hand up? Let me look down here. Egon?
I wanted to say I agree very much with what Richard said. He makes good common sense there. When sometimes they used to drop the phone book by the front door. I think one year here they left them in the elevator foyer, and that seemed perfectly reasonable. Didn't look like dumping to me. And they were there for several weeks, and they disappeared little by little. And I agree with Richard. They provide a valuable service. Thank you.
Thank you. Maggie?
Yes, I agree with the way it's stated, but I think the phone books are necessary. I mean, I can't imagine us not getting phone books here. That would be silly. So the phone book is full of a lot of information, and there were comments in the communications meeting that not all the village information was correct, and so they will have to agree with that. But nobody's looking to it for a Bible. But you certainly need all the information in there, and I don't want to stop getting a phone book here. They only hang around for a week or two. People do take them and use them. Thank you very much.
Okay. One more comment. Siobhan? We've already voted on this, so.
Thank you, President.
We don't want to take too much time on it.
Thank you, President Carpenter. I did want to reiterate the fact that the board discussed this in September and in November, and staff was simply just directed to include insurance provisions. The board did endorse the resolution for distribution of publications by non-residents because the board felt it was necessary for these distributions to continue. So again, we made the one modification for insurance requirements, and that is all.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? So if there are no further comments, we'll take a 5-minute break. And it's 10:59, so let's make it 11:05 that we come back. Thank you. I'll go ahead and start. So the next item on the agenda is the committee reports. Jim, are you ready to report on the Finance Committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first report that I have is the Treasurer's Report. And the organizer, is there a, there we are.
There we go.
It works.
Well, they did say we're guinea pigs today.
Yeah, it works. They're doing a great job.
Okay.
Okay. Well, slide 1. Through the reporting period of January 31st, 2021, total revenue for GRF was $3.5 million compared to expenses of $3.3 million, resulting in net revenue of $220,000, as you see. Next slide, please. Of course, in finance, we keep a close eye on the operating portion of our financial results. The operating fund, which is without depreciation, shows a favorable variance of just $95,000 through the reporting period. Next slide, please. This chart shows the same actuals from the income statement, but it's compared to budget. GRF ended the period better than budget of $165,000, primarily resulting from timing. And just a comment on that, generally speaking, organizations are throughout January, well into January, are involved in closing the books. In many cases, vendors and other associated companies are late in processing their invoices and other things that would impact our statements. So you'll hear timing as being an issue for several of the items that we talk about. In other words, January is not to be considered an indication of any trend in many cases. But we still report it. Many corporations actually don't report January even internally. Slide number 4, please. I'm sorry. I haven't really talked about slide number 3. Just wanted to make sure we got another view of that. Okay, slide number 4, please. Thank you. This slide shows our most significant variances by category, with the green bars representing favorable variances and the orange bars representing unfavorable variances. We see that the employee compensation and related expenses are $199,000 favorable, due to facility closure and limited services during COVID-19 pandemic. Materials and supplies are $61,000 favorable due to several areas of operating, including fleet services, maintenance, sidewalks, and golf operations. Again, that's due to the timing also of the equipment repair needs. Moving down to trust facility funds, they are $33,000 favorable due to more manors being sold, and there were 78 resales in January versus a budget of 62, also compared to 48 in January of 2020. So we're obviously on a much better pathway due to a lot of things in terms of sales of units. In the unfavorable, there was an unrealized gain on AFS investments. The $67,000 unfavorable variance This entry is made monthly and reflects investment market conditions, which will fluctuate. Again, not an indicator. Cable programming fees were $61,000, unfavorable, due to timing of franchise fees. The variance was furthered by higher than budgeted programming fees. Broadband services revenue were $42,000 unfavorable due to timing of ad insertion and video revenue. Miscellaneous revenue is $33,000 unfavorable due to less fees collected during facility closures, including non-resident parking fees, photocopy fees, auto decal fees, and additional occupant fees. Slide 5, please. This chart shows proportionately what our revenue from other than assessments, such as fees and rentals. To date, we have received nearly $880,000 as shown in this pie chart. By category, we can see our largest revenue is broadband services. That's from the internet, set-top boxes, and premium channels, followed by our trust facility fees. Okay, again, and that's $5,000 transfer fee from resales. Also, our golf green fees and operations contribute to 17%. Miscellaneous revenue is 2%. So you can see our largest, we've got three very large contributors to our non-assessment revenue. Next slide, please. Slide 7. Okay. This chart shows the resale history, okay? Again, the community-wide sales were 78 through January of 2021. Most of these transactions generate about $5,000 in trust facilities fees. As you can see, when you compare to previous year's January, we are well up above both 2019 and 2020. So we're actually on a very good pathway for, assuming this trend continues, we're on a good pathway for this particular slide, for this particular item. Slide 8, please. Okay, this is the reserve and contingency funds with adjusted balances. Starting with the first column on the left, the funds have a combined ending of $32.5 million. Included in this total are the contributions received this year through assessments, trust facility fees, and interest earnings. The second column shows the work in process of $8.2 million, reflecting the amounts paid for projects not yet complete. This is not just this year. That's since the projects that are still in process started. The third column represents the resulting adjusted balance of $24.3 million. Slide number 9, please. We compare our adjusted fund balance to historical balances over the past 5 years on this next chart, showing that GRF has averaged about $24 million in reserve and contingency funds. Just a word, when we look at what the future projections are, that with Clubhouse 1 and some other large expenditures, this balance looks like it will go down in the near future, so we'll have to make some adjustments here. Slide number 10, please. The listing on this slide gives you an idea of where reserve money is committed. Of the $15.4 million appropriated by the board for various projects and equipment purchases, the remaining encumbrances against our reserves and contingency funds is $11.9 million. Again, that shows that we've got encumbrances on our reserve that I mentioned in the previous chart. Are there any questions? And that concludes my report. My next yes, there are no questions. Okay. Next was the GRF Finance Committee report. At our last meeting, we considered 3 different items. One, we had a presentation from our investment advisor and our investment company, Sage, in which we looked at our investments as of January, as well as considered looking at what the mix should be within, or can be, within our portfolio. That is still a work in process, and so we're moving forward with looking into that. The second thing we considered was the audit, continuing audit, and that was actually the Select Audit Committee, which is made up of the treasurer and 3 other volunteers. And we considered, we had a report from KPMG as to what the audit process would look like. And thirdly, we had Bank of America give us a presentation on their service level and the fees. We took a deep dive into that. Again, we're looking into what we can do to improve the fees that we pay for our services. And our next meeting will be April 21st, 2021 at 1:30 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Jim. So the next item is strategic planning. John, do you have a report on strategic planning?
Yeah, I'll give a quick update. We have made progress. We had arranged 2 subcommittees in our prior full strategic planning committee meeting. We have the customer service / customer experience subcommittee and the facilities subcommittee, and both have met and reviewed with staff pros, cons, strengths, weaknesses, and tried to put forth recommendations that we're going to bring back to the full committee and try to get clear direction that we can move forward with before bringing anything to the GRF board. The strategic planning committee meetings will be open, and we certainly welcome public input and participation. We just set up the next one. I believe it's for March 17th at 1:30 p.m. And we'll have a lot more to share next month, maybe even some visuals of some of the visions that this, I think, excellent committee is putting forward that the whole community will probably want to have some feedback on it and see where we're hoping to improve things over time. So that's kind of where we are with the strategic planning committee.
Thank you, John. Would you like to give a report on the CAC committee?
Yes, thank you. It's kind of similar in that a lot of progress is being made, but just not quite ready to be presented yet. We have a meeting coming up next week where we will, for the first time, put forth some of our financial analysis of fees. And we're going to be talking about trying to build a standardized fee structure that's fair to the community, but also manages GRF's very challenging budget for activities. So we're trying to weigh those 2 things together. We're speaking with representatives from various activities. We're getting great feedback from the committee on what may make sense, what may not. Everybody should understand we're simply trying to build a framework for presentation. We're not trying to dictate what our community should do. That will come up before the GRF board and have plenty of steps to be processed before we finalize anything. But what we started out doing that I think would be useful for the community to know is we wanted to put numbers to this. You know, what is the cost? How many participants are using these activities? Give an objective, meaningful analysis of what's being used pre-COVID, of course, in the community so we can start to understand what things really cost and how we can manage them more efficiently. So that will be coming up in the meeting, and then we'll have a report for the board next month.
Thank you. So the next item is the Equestrian Center. And my report on that is we are meeting now every other month. This has been an extremely successful, ad hoc committee. My understanding is that by the end of March, we'll have all the stalls filled except for one. And soon we will be looking at having the arena maintained. The arena hasn't been maintained for a really long time. It is much needed, and they'll be coming before the board pretty soon to get that approved. So the center, when they open, the Equestrian Center will be able to hold outdoor entertainment when it opens. And I'm really hoping that we'll be able to enjoy the summer barbecues that many of us enjoyed through the years. So our next meeting, our next meeting is going to be March 4th at 1 o'clock. Thank you. And so maintenance and construction. Egon.
Okay. I was thinking you were going to go to landscape next, but okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, and you're absolutely right. And Yvonne asked me to speak for her because of the fact that she's having technical difficulties. So the only thing that I need to say on that is the next meeting is March 10th, 2021 at 1:30. So now you can go ahead, Egon. Thank you.
Okay. So, at our last meeting in the M&C committee, we had two presentations. One was by Amoresco, which is a company that is looking at installing solar-powered micro power stations in various. They're doing this all around the country, and they looked at 7 locations in the village here, and they went with considerable amount of detail. And I think it's something that we will want to move forward with in the future. We had a second presentation presentation of the SCE Ready 2 charge stations. And this was a presentation to tell us what SCE had available in terms of funding assistance to install service station, vehicle charging stations in the village. And again, this is something that we should definitely look into. I think we need to probably get an application to get in line with this, because there'll be a lot of people that will want this kind of funding. And we had plans back in 2017 to set up 2 more charging stations, and they did not go through at that time, and it's time to look at those again. Other than that, we discussed just some odds and ends on the PAC, and we have recently, or since then, we have signed the contracts to go ahead with the PAC air conditioning, and also with the first floor renovation, the dining rooms and the lobby. Other than that, we discussed once again the driving range, and in fact we had a meeting and at the driving range, and we went down and we looked around, and again we did not come to common ground. But it was a very, very useful exercise to go down and look in person at what the situation was down there. And we're going to hear from a representative of the golf course, a consultant to the golf course, people, and they're going to give us an opinion on some of the stuff with respect to the driving range. We will hold another meeting. We will hold that before the next M&C meeting because time is dragging on too long. Our next meeting in M&C will be on April the 14th, so we want to get something in before then. And so we'll set up a special meeting. Don't have a time yet. And that's where we are with respect to M&C at this time.
Thank you. Bert, do you have anything to report on for the Clubhouse One?
With regard to Clubhouse One, we asked the BMSMC back in January to arrange for 3 different architects to come in to do a programmatic, or to discuss with a programmatic study that we want to do on Clubhouse One. And we have been waiting to hear from M&C dates so that we can ask them basically what type of work they have done in the past in order to do programmatic studies, what's their qualifications, and to describe to us the approach that they would be proposing to take. So we're still waiting for M&C to come back and set up that meeting. Other than that, nothing more to report.
Okay, thank you. Media and communications, Joan.
Thank you, Madam President. Media and Communications met on Monday, February 22nd at 11:30 a.m. because President's Day interfered with our regular meeting. At this meeting, a couple things that were rather exciting, and one of them we're experiencing now, which is the use of the Zoom platform to enable everybody to participate. I think you'll all agree it's kind of interesting and exciting. I hope that it will allow all of us to benefit. The other thing that was discussed, was brought up was the COVID vaccination communication systems that was improved greatly through Code Red and other means of communication. And the third thing that I think is rather important was Mr. Holland and Ms. Poland presented the year-end financials for broadband services, media services, the TV studio, and media and communications administration within the media and communication department. And Mr. Holland went over the revenues and expenses in each division. And generally, we're doing better than budget. We are still under budget. And our next meeting will be March 15th at 1:30 p.m. And that's my report.
Thank you. The next item is Mobile and Vehicle Committee. Don. Okay. Don, we can't hear you. There we go.
All right, good. We reviewed the ridership of all of our programs. We have 3 basic programs, the Fixed Route, the Journey Program, and the Boost. All 3 have been kind of updated to meet the needs that have been brought on because of the COVID virus. But we're doing pretty good. We received 2 new Chevy boat electric vehicles. That gives us a total of 6 electric vehicles right now, and we are expecting 2 hybrid vehicles in the early spring. And staff is in the process now of doing a very detailed inventory of all of our vehicles, and I'll share that with you hopefully next month. Yes. Oh, yeah, we talked about that new truck for 55,000. Had a pros and cons for it, and you approved it this morning, which is definitely appreciated by staff. Our next meeting is April 7th at 1:30. That's it for that meeting.
Thank you. And Don, will you continue with the security and community access report?
Okay, we had an update on our disaster preparedness task force. They're in the process now of updating their roster. There's been a big change in people that always are. The people are moving in, moving out, but we are going to update the roster and try to make it a little better. We had an update on the RV lots as of last week, where we had 3 vacancies. The major items on the compliance list that I give you every meeting, they seem kind of petty, but I guess the residents are kind of antsy, and there was arguments between neighbors, and staff has to be called out, but it's very petty. So we're really doing pretty good, and I think the residents are doing an excellent job, especially wearing the masks. See, the gate access control system voted to study, this is the big one, study on the stickers on the vehicles. If you remember, the board voted last year to eliminate the stickers effective January 1st. But we did that, and it seems the people aren't too happy with it. So staff is going to get input again from residents and make a study, and we will come back to you, back to this board with a recommendation on what to do with that. And our next meeting is April 26th at 1:30. That's it, Brian.
Okay, thank you. So Yvonne's having problems with the village, with her technical problems here, and so we're just going to have to forego the report on the Laguna Woods Village traffic hearings.
President Carpenter, I can
would have
attempt to unmute her now to see if she can join the meeting.
Okay. I didn't even see her. Oh, I see her name now. Okay. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
oh, yes, okay.
Yippee. About the traffic hearing. The last 2 months, we've had problems in that there's actually nobody trained to work with us and get people notified that they need to come to our traffic court. So I really have nothing to report except that we have a lot of fines that are just piling up. Anyway, that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Disaster preparedness. Bert. Bert? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did not meet this last month.
Okay, thank you.
With the energy group, looking into the microgrids to provide resiliency in our power supplies. So we'll be doing joint work on that. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any comments on, Jim, on the software group?
No, we haven't met in a while, and So I'll have to get an update on when we think we will meet in the near future.
Okay, thank you. And Sue, the Energy Solutions Ad Hoc Committee, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I do. Earlier, Egon touched on the two major projects that we're working on. I can just provide a little more detail.
Okay.
He was talking about a microgrid study that we had a company that offered to do that for free for us. It was a feasibility study just looking at a high level at whether or not we should continue our research into this area, and the answer was we should. It appears that, like Bert just said, resiliency is important, backup generation basically is important, and independence from an electricity standpoint in the case of an emergency or emergencies. And so what we're doing is proceeding with a couple of other companies that have also agreed to help us gain even a better understanding of what the feasibility is. And we got, the first company we worked with was a premier provider, and these others are also major providers in the state of California of microgrids. And I should explain that we're tying microgrids with the energy as a service concept. But that's what we're trying to do to make sure that we have no upfront cost and are still able to achieve what we need. And also I wanted to clarify that the microgrids are really a cluster of solar installation combined with batteries. And they would be located mostly at the clubhouses and the service center. So microgrid sounds like this big concept like Edison the California Independent System Operator operates a grid. And this is not the same. And this is more like solar installations. However, they can work like a grid because they can be tied together or operated or I guess the word's dispatched in such a way that they almost appear to be like a grid and achieve the same benefits. And then the other thing we're working on that Egon talked about was the EV charging station. This is primarily driven by the fact that Edison has a significant funding program that just started January 1st this year, and we want to make sure that we grab some of that money because it's going to provide a lot of the cost, really reduce the cost that we would have to pay. And so what we're trying to do is resurrect a study that was done in November 2017. We asked staff to provide some information about the 2017 plans that were developed, but they snagged the wrong ones. They went back to the spring of 2017, and those were entirely different studies. The studies we're looking for, and I think staff is still working on this, are November 2017, looking at two installations, one at Clubhouse 2 and one at Clubhouse 7, primarily because EV charging needs to accomplish a couple of things. It needs to be destination charging, which means people have something to go do. Well, and certainly at Clubhouse 2, they can go over to the restaurant and other things. And then the other thing, they need to be open to the public. It's not a requirement they be open to the public, but it helps us from the standpoint that the public would pay a higher cost if they came in and used these chargers, and that would help offset our cost. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Okay, we have no future agenda items. So are there any director comments?
I want to go home.
Okay, Bert?
No, none.
Bert?
No comment.
Oh, okay. Are there any other comments? Jim?
Yeah, just two comments. One is last Friday I got my second COVID shot, and I was really amazed at the efficiency
and all the volume that the volunteers, community volunteers, as well as the memorial care staff, they were great. Once I got in, it was a very quick process. Everybody was congenially waiting in line. It was more of a line wait this time, but that's understandable because you just had to get everybody through who got their first shots over a 2 or 3 week period. So it was an amazing process. I will say, second shot knocked me down for a day.
Me too.
So, but I'm back up and running. The other comment was for everyone. The VMS Finance Department puts out a great source document called the Green Book. I read the 2021, and I'm reading the 2021 Green Book. And for everybody out there, it is online. You can see amazing detail as to where your money goes and how it is spent. I think it's one of the most complete documents that I've seen coming out of the VMS group, and that's not that is not other complete documents. It's just one that I, as the treasurer, take a particular look at. But it is an amazing document, and I encourage all the residents to take a look at it. It's available online through the VMS website, residents side.
Thank you. Joan, did you want to speak?
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate or to emphasize what Jim said about the COVID vaccinations. They were excellent. The thing I was admiring, they were taking care of the people that could not stand in line. They had another line going for those that needed to get in more quickly just because they couldn't stand. So I compliment the whole situation. It was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Maggie?
Yes, I was there on Friday also. We had a nice long look at the driving range as we went through the zigzag line out there, and we watched some people hitting balls. Most of them were not very good, but they were enjoying it. And they offered umbrellas and water to everybody, and they even had walkers for people to use or sit on. It was very, very carefully done. The service was wonderful. It was just the best thing they could do. And I didn't have any reactions. I never have a reaction. So my shot was excellent. But it was really, nobody in line was mad or crying or angry or anything. They were so nice to us in line. It just couldn't have been better. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments? Sue?
I just wanted to thank staff for switching to Zoom. I think it works so much better. Thank you very much.
Me too. Any other comments? So if there are no further comments, at this time we will recess for lunch and reconvene for our closed meeting. Let's see, it's 11:45, so let's make it at 12:15 that we will reconvene. Thank you. I don't know if we have to leave and come back or what.